My name is Samantha Reed. I'm 30. And for as long as I can remember, I've been the family's invisible scaffolding, the one they call when the Wi-Fi dies, when passports vanish, or when life's chaos needs a calm hand. I grew up in a household where love came wrapped in expectation. My father called me responsible. My mother called me reliable. And my younger siblings, Hannah and Jake, called me whenever their bank balances hit a perilous low or their latest plan teetered on collapse. I was the human safety net, the quiet fixer who could always make the numbers align. Even now, years later, it was the same. I'm meticulous, cautious, and deeply practical, and I suppose that's why my boyfriend Richard always says I bring balance to his life. Calm, level-headed, he's the one person who sees the scaffolding for what it is, and gently reminds me I don't have to carry everyone else's weight alone. The wedding was supposed to be simple, a small guest list, intimate vows, nothing ostentatious. We'd sent the invites months in advance, chosen a weekend free of family obligations, or so I thought. 2 weeks before the ceremony, I called my mother just to confirm. "Your sister's baby shower is the priority. We can't come to your wedding," she said, crisp and final. I stared at the phone, not out of disbelief, but out of a strange, quiet resignation. "It was the same weekend?" I asked, and she confirmed, her voice perfectly neutral, almost rehearsed. "These things happen. You know how important it is for Hannah. We need to support her first. She's having a baby." I swallowed. Every speech I'd rehearsed since I was 12 about being second place, about not being enough, rose and fell in my throat. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't explain deposits, vendors, or the way Richard looked at me in the empty line under the family table, a subtle mix of support and worry. I ended the call, turned my phone face down, and breathed. Across the office, my assistant peeked in. "Everything okay, Samantha?" "Family," I said, calm. "It's fine." I wish I could tell you I cried. I didn't. I went very still, like a storm paused on the horizon, silent and measured. In our family group chat, Hannah pinged, "Baby shower is going to be adorable. Theme, little sunshine. Can everyone bring a book instead of a card?" Dad reacted with confetti emojis. Mom sent 3 hearts. Not a single mention of my wedding. I typed nothing. I had already decided how I was going to handle it. They thought I would plead. They thought I would negotiate. They had no idea I had a plan. No idea the ceremony's location was entirely my secret. It started small, decades ago. At 18, I got my first internship at a regional bank. My paycheck went to textbooks, gas, and a house fund, a euphemism for groceries with no room for indulgences. When Hannah's cheer fees were due, I volunteered. When Jake's college tuition needed a bridge, I offered. By graduation, it wasn't charity, it was expectation. "Family takes care of family," Dad would say, which somehow meant I took care of everyone, and everyone took care of having opinions. By the time I landed in commercial lending, the numbers grew larger. So did the asks. I helped refinance the house when Dad's hours got cut. I co-signed loans for Hannah when she switched majors. I even fronted a business venture Jake started, which promptly failed, leaving me to untangle the mess. Whenever I hesitated, Mom found a sentence wrapped in guilt. "You're blessed, Samantha. Not everyone has what you have. You owe it to your siblings." What I had, a small apartment, a desk that wobbled, a car that only started on the second try, felt ordinary. What I had was the discipline to say no to frivolity and yes to prudence. It made me boring, but banks love boring. And Richard? He saw all this. He didn't judge. He didn't ask for lectures or spreadsheets. When I showed him my meticulously color-coded ledgers, he didn't roll his eyes. He asked gently, "What's the pattern?" And I'd show him, the numbers spiking with every text from Hannah, each request, each subtle plea. We kept the wedding small but meaningful. My only requests to the family were punctual RSVPs and zero financial interference. I wanted them to be present, not predatory. Then came the week of the baby shower. Pastel mood boards flooded my feeds. Hannah's tower of cupcakes, the glittering banners, the endless planning. It was suffocating. I tried politely to remind them, the date conflicts with our wedding. "You can schedule weddings anytime. Babies are special. Isn't Hannah's due in 3 months?" Mom replied like she'd just won a chess match. The group chat went silent. Not a word about my wedding, except Jake's snide, "Bro, if you do it live, send the link. We'll tune in between games. Dad added, we'll be there in spirit. I stared at the empty family column on my seating chart and felt a pang of something I hadn't named yet. Disappointment? Betrayal? Perhaps both. But I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I didn't let it show. I had a plan, and it didn't rely on them. Because by now I had learned the quiet truth. Love isn't obligation, and generosity isn't infinite. You can give until there's nothing left, and the world will still ask for more. I turned back to Richard. His hand found mine, calm, grounding, supportive. What now? He asked. Now, I said, a faint smile touching my lips. We proceed on our terms. And that's exactly what we would do. The pattern had been consistent for years. My family didn't ask. They assumed. And when I didn't meet the silent quota of support, they became disappointed, frustrated, even subtly accusatory. It wasn't cruelty. It was entitlement dressed as love. And I had worn it like armor, quietly carrying their expectations while my own life waited in the wings. Hannah wanted a premium baby shower, a custom dessert tower, balloons sculpted into impossibly intricate shapes, a photographer who specialized in staged, candid shots. She sent me a list titled, "Since You Can't Bring a Casserole," with price tags attached. I should have been surprised, but I wasn't. I knew how this worked. Every request was a test, a way to gauge how much I would give before I said no. And I did give, for decades. College tuition when Jake switched majors for the third time. A deposit for Hannah's cheer competition, even though I had to scrimp on my own expenses to cover it. Emergency repairs, surprise medical bills, flights for holidays I barely had time to enjoy. I had thought my love could be measured in dollars, in sacrifices, that if I just gave enough, they would see me, appreciate me, but each act became a line item in their ledger of expectation, rather than an expression of affection. My phone buzzed incessantly. Another message from Hannah. I found a photographer who does vintage filters. Can we afford it? Don't worry, I'll send the link. Mom's voice note followed shortly after, exuding mild exasperation. Samantha, don't be petty. You make 6 figures. It's nothing to you. Nothing to me. To them, perhaps. But what they didn't understand was the cost of giving, year after year, without pause or acknowledgement. My savings, my quiet sacrifices, the discipline I had cultivated, all of it had been invisible to the very people who had trained me to believe I owed them everything. Richard leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, watching me scroll through the messages. He didn't say anything, just let me breathe. That's what made him different from my family. His calm wasn't condescending. His questions weren't hidden accusations. When he finally spoke, it was with a gentle clarity that cut through the emotional fog. Samantha, why do you keep doing this? I shrugged, almost ashamed. Because they expect it. Because if I don't, they'll think I don't love them. And I do love them. My voice was small. I just don't know how to stop loving them like this. Richard's fingers brushed mine. You don't have to. You just have to love them on your terms, not theirs. He was right, and yet, letting go of the invisible ledger that had defined me for years felt impossible. The habit of giving, of silently absorbing their needs, was so ingrained it was almost reflexive. That evening, I sat alone in my apartment, ledger open, calculating not just the sums, but the emotional toll. Each line represented more than money. It was guilt, obligation, missed nights, compromised freedom. I realized that I had been treating love like a loan, expecting that if I just overextended enough, my family would repay me with gratitude. But gratitude never came, only expectation. A week later, another escalation. Jake texted, Samantha, can you cover rent this month? Taxes didn't come through yet. Promise we'll pay you back. I stared at the message, tracing the edges of my patience. I typed a response, paused, deleted it. Not this time. I didn't owe anyone my stress or my finances. Not anymore. The tension coiled tighter when Hannah tried to involve me in her social media theatrics. She posted mood boards, story updates, and hints about the baby shower budget, all subtle signals designed to elicit guilt and compliance. And yet, each notification that pinged my phone felt like a reminder of my silent rebellion. The quiet observation that I could exist outside their expectations. Richard noticed the subtle shift in me. You're not going to answer all of these, are you? He asked, nodding toward my buzzing phone. No, I said, not this time. For the first time, I understood that my value wasn't measured by their satisfaction or by the sums I provided. My worth wasn't transactional. And for the first time, I felt the seeds of something long denied, control over my own life, my own choices. The emotional turning point was subtle but unmistakable. I realized I could choose the life I wanted, even if my family didn't approve. I could stop being their ATM, stop absorbing every expectation, every silent demand. I could finally live for myself and for Richard. And yet, the shadow of tension remained. They were unaware, oblivious, underestimating me, as they always had. I smiled faintly, knowing that when the moment came, they would be blindsided. They had no idea how carefully I'd been planning my independence, not just for the wedding, but for everything that followed. That night, I locked my laptop, slipped my phone into silent mode, and let the apartment breathe with me. I traced the lines of the ledger, the numbers and the history, and felt a strange, calming clarity. The expectations, the incessant needs, they no longer had dominion over me. I looked over at Richard, curled up reading quietly on the couch. He looked up, his expression knowing. Ready for tomorrow? I nodded. Not just for tomorrow, but for the life that awaited us beyond the shadow of obligation. I had started seeing a path that wasn't dictated by guilt or familial pressure, a path I could walk with my head held high and my heart intact. And in that quiet, I realized the breaking point was coming. Soon, they would see that I was no longer theirs to command. The day arrived quietly, like any other, but I felt the tension under my skin, a slow drumbeat counting down to the inevitable. The wedding weekend and Hannah's baby shower were on a collision course, and I knew it. My family still didn't understand the scope of what they'd asked me to endure. They assumed compliance. They assumed I would bend, as always. I had a folder with me that day. Thick, organized, labeled with years of quiet sacrifice, of invisible labor, of financial and emotional generosity. I carried it like armor, a tangible manifestation of everything they had taken for granted. I didn't need their approval, but I wanted acknowledgement. Not excuses, not guilt, just recognition that I had limits, that I wasn't limitless. I arrived at my parents' house, wedding programs in hand. I expected tension. I did not expect the casual chaos of the baby shower preparation. Tiny jars of honey with "Oh Baby" tags lined the counters. Glitter banners hung halfway, waiting to be finished. Hannah's hand rested on her belly, the other scrolling on her phone. Mom moved around, arranging the flowers, offering instructions. Dad was quietly lifting boxes into place, watching the storm of activity with a practiced neutrality. "Samantha," Mom said, voice smooth but tinged with the faintest irritation, "if you came to apologize, I accept." "For what?" I asked, calm but firm. "For making things complicated," she said, wielding the words like a scalpel. I set the wedding programs down. I was here to drop them off, yes, but also to make one thing very clear. "I brought a folder," I said, lifting it slightly, as though it were weightless. "An unfunded person brings receipts. I'm not unfunded, Mom. I'm meticulous. Here's everything I've covered over the last 7 years." I slid it across the counter. House payments during Dad's furlough, tuition catch-ups, Jake's rent, Hannah's medical bills, flights for the last Christmas gathering, the SUV down payment that had quietly landed on my credit, loans for failed businesses, overdraft fees no one had ever seen. Every transaction, every act of generosity, documented. Dad's jaw tightened. Mom's fingers hovered over the folder like it was dirty. "This isn't fair," Mom said. "Facts aren't fair," I replied. I took a deep breath and added 2 more. 1, I'm done funding anything I didn't personally choose. 2, if anyone tries to access my accounts again, including you, Hannah, and yes, even Dad, I will file police reports. That includes your husbands and boyfriends. I am not a bank. I am not a card in anyone's wallet. I am your daughter. I am done being treated as a resource rather than a person." Hannah scoffed, tapping her phone, half amused, half defensive. "This is you punishing us because my baby shower matters more than your wedding?" I shook my head. "No, it's not punishment. It's boundaries. My wedding matters. And if you choose not to be there, that's your choice, not mine." Mom's mouth flattened. "You're going to regret this." "I won't," I said calmly. "And one more thing. Stop telling people you can't afford to travel. I offered to pay for your tickets months ago." Hannah waved her phone. Just drop the link to the live stream then. There won't be one, I said. I left as scissors clipped ribbon, the faint scent of glue and artificial flowers in the air. No one followed. I drove home, washed my hands of honey and glitter, and sent one final message to the group chat. Travel details were in the envelope I mailed 6 months ago. You can still come if you choose to. Please don't contact me on the wedding day. No one replied. Within the hour, Hannah posted a boomerang of yellow cupcakes. Real family shows up. Mom commented, "Absolutely." Dad posted a thumbs up emoji. I left my phone on Do Not Disturb and started packing. 3 days later, we flew out. The venue was an oceanfront villa in Maui, my secret, purchased 5 years earlier as an investment, mathematically sound, completely mine. 2 bedrooms, wraparound lanai, the kind of view that steals your breath every morning. I hadn't shared it with my family, knowing that the second I did, it would be communal property. Richard and I arrived on Thursday. By Friday, our friends had filled the villa with flowers. His parents cried at the sight of the water, the small details I'd orchestrated, and the quiet intimacy of the space. I grilled fish in an apron that read, Banker's Grill, 2 temperature, and we rehearsed our vows with sand between our toes. The wedding day arrived. Richard walked down the lanai in a simple, elegant suit. I stepped forward in a dress that felt like me, calm, understated, unassuming. The sky transformed into a gradient of colors that no paint store could replicate. We said our vows barefoot, the ocean applauding with each wave. Our friends clapped, cried, and celebrated without the looming shadow of entitlement or expectation. By nightfall, the family group chat, once buzzing with demands, sprouted red notification dots, 101 missed calls, voicemails stacked like books I had no intention of reading. Mom, Dad, Hannah, even distant relatives, all reaching out too late, too little, too unaware. Richard took my hand. "What do you want to do?" he asked. I smiled quietly. "Brush our teeth," I said. And we did. We existed. No performance, no ledger, no obligations. For the first time, the weight of years lifted. The scaffolding I had built for everyone else was finally for me, and for Richard. The quiet voice in my head, the one I'd long ignored, spoke clearly. No, not today. That's not my responsibility. I realized then, fully, that love isn't a debt. Boundaries aren't betrayal. And independence, the kind that doesn't require anyone's permission, is its own kind of triumph. The villa was quiet now. The flowers had wilted, the sand smoothed by the tide, but the air still carried the faint scent of jasmine and salt. Richard and I sat on the lanai, legs dangling over the edge, feet barely grazing the warm wood. The ocean stretched before us, relentless and steady, entirely indifferent to the dramas of human expectation. I glanced at my phone. The notifications had stopped. The family had reached out, yes, but their voices were distant, muted, almost hesitant. For a week I let them sit. I didn't reply. I didn't engage. I needed silence to understand what I'd done, not to punish, but to finally feel the weight of my own choices. Mom was first. Her texts were careful, measured, attempting connection without apology. "We need to talk when you're ready." I read, then deleted. Not yet. Dad followed, a voice message. He sounded smaller, diminished somehow, void of the usual authority that had pressed so heavily on me for years. "Samantha, I think we overstepped. Call me when you can." And then Hannah. Her boomerangs and Instagram stories quieted. I didn't know if she was reflecting or simply giving up on the idea of controlling me. I let the silence linger. It was liberating. For the first time in decades, the air around me wasn't charged with obligation. I could breathe. I could move. And most importantly, I could finally direct my life, not as a resource, not as a ledger, not as a passive participant in my family's expectations, but as Samantha Reed, as myself. Richard nudged me. "Do you regret it?" I shook my head, smiling faintly. "No. For the first time, I don't owe anyone anything. I can give, but only because I choose to." He pulled me close, and now we can build our life without their shadow over it. I leaned against him, letting the ocean's steady pulse echo the rhythm I felt inside. All the resentment, all the frustration, all the invisible labor that had haunted my 20s and early 30s. It was gone. I wasn't leaving my family. I was leaving their control. And there was a difference. Back home, the messages slowly trickled in. Aunt Rosa called first, softly, almost cautiously. I saw the photos. She said, "You look happy, really happy. I'm proud of you." I answered simply, "Thank you. That means more than anything else." Then Mara's, or in this version, Richard's parents. Praise, yes, but also relief. For them, seeing their child's partner finally free from the weight of a demanding family was confirmation of what they had always known. Independence doesn't mean severing love. It means choosing how and when to give it. Hannah reached out last, her voice hesitant, soft. "I didn't realize." She didn't finish, and I didn't need her to. Sometimes acknowledgement is enough. Sometimes the lesson comes too late, and that's their responsibility, not mine. Over the next months, life unfolded quietly but profoundly. Richard and I traveled to small, unassuming places, shared meals we cooked together, laughed without the constant background of obligation. I finally understood the difference between love that drains and love that nourishes. And in every room I stood, whether in my office, the kitchen, or on a quiet beach at sunset, I felt the clarity of ownership over my own life. The voice in my head, calm and resolute, repeated a simple mantra: protect your principle. Everything else is optional. I didn't broadcast my wealth, my success, or the sacrifices I'd made. I didn't need to. What mattered was the life I built for myself and Richard, and the boundaries we maintained. The family I had grown up serving could still exist in my life, but on my terms, not theirs. The villa awaited our return next summer, not as a statement of revenge, but as a celebration of choice. Friends would gather, fish would be grilled, board games argued over, conversations meandered into the night, and for the first time my joy wouldn't be shared through the lens of others' approval. Richard laughed, nudging me as I gazed at the horizon. "You finally look free." "I am," I said, "completely." And that was all the revenge I ever wanted. Not a tally of debts repaid, not a public spectacle, not a lesson imposed on others. Just the quiet, enduring truth. I had finally claimed my own life. Weeks passed after the villa wedding, and life resumed its quiet rhythm. Richard and I settled into our home with an ease I had never known before. No ledgers, no phone calls demanding financial triage, no last-minute family emergencies landing in my inbox. Just mornings filled with coffee and the sound of our laughter echoing through the rooms. The family, inevitably, began testing boundaries. Mom sent a series of texts, softer this time, asking for advice on small matters: a window repair, a recipe, a gardening tip. I responded selectively, calmly, never defaulting to my old role of immediate rescuer. Each measured reply reinforced the new terms. I was present, but not a doormat. Dad followed, slower, heavier with introspection. He called once, tentatively. "Samantha, I've been thinking about what you said. Maybe we did expect too much." I listened. I didn't interrupt. I acknowledged without conceding, setting the tone for respectful conversation, not coercion. Hannah's approach was the hardest. She texted sporadically, questions peppered with guilt and defensiveness. One night, after another failed attempt to engage me, I finally typed, "I love you. I always have. But love isn't a credit card. You'll need to find your own way sometimes. I'm here if respect is involved, not for debts or manipulation." The response came hours later, short, almost empty. Understood. It was not reconciliation. It was acknowledgement. And for now, that was enough. I realized then that closure is rarely dramatic. It doesn't always need apologies, confessions, or emotional fireworks. Sometimes it's quiet. It's the steady assertion of self. It's deciding, in every small interaction, who you allow into your emotional and practical life, and on what terms. Richard and I embraced this rhythm together. We made plans for the next summer at the Maui villa, not to flaunt wealth or to punish, but to celebrate autonomy. Friends would come, meals would be shared, laughter would flow freely. No one's expectations would overshadow our joy. No one's entitlement would compromise our peace. The lessons I carried were hard-earned. Generosity is noble, but it cannot come at the expense of self. Love is profound, but it cannot be transactional. And freedom, real, unshakable freedom, comes only when you claim it fully, even if it means leaving behind the familiar chaos of family obligation. Late one evening, I found myself on the lanai again. staring at the ocean, Richard at my side. The horizon was wide, endless, and unjudging. The gentle waves whispered a truth I had long avoided. I was no longer the caretaker, the invisible scaffolding, or the unpaid banker of family drama. I was Samantha Reed, and my life was mine to shape. "Are you happy?" Richard asked softly. I closed my eyes, letting the ocean's rhythm sync with mine. "I am," I said, "completely. And finally, without compromise." He squeezed my hand. "You've earned this." "No," I said, smiling. "I've taken it, and that makes all the difference." The family that once demanded everything from me still existed in my life, but now on a foundation of respect, not expectation. I could be present without being a martyr. I could love without sacrificing my own autonomy. And in that space, I found a profound joy I had never imagined. The villa awaited our return, the ocean whispered, and for the first time, my heart, my life, was entirely my own. No apologies required, no debts owed, just freedom. And that freedom, I realized, was the only revenge worth having.